Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon. I'm a storyteller helping people make an impact through illustration, creative coaching, writing, and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness. And now I bring my 20 years experience to you, the listener, through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. Through interviews with thought leaders in and beyond the creative industry and personal inquiry, I'm here to help you maximise the human in your creativity to thrive in the age of automation. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a leading illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. Foilco, suppliers of the world's widest range of stamping foil shades and finishes to the print industry. Foilco were the very first foil company to set up a foil recovery scheme and be certified as zero foil to landfill compliant. Paradiso Institute is a non-profit cultural organisation built around a simple idea: creative lives require responsibility. Leadership and endurance and care for the body and mind shape the work more than talent ever will. They bring together people across borders and generations who are willing to commit to depth and long-term contribution. They value real encounters, shared experience, and giving back to the communities that formed them. Their attention stays on the work that holds over time. And please head to ui.org.ua to see the work of the Ukrainian Institute, who need your help to amplify the voices of the brave Ukrainian creative community during this brutal time of war. The music for the show, as ever, is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. For creativity resources for all budgets, from one-to-one and group coaching with me, to the reading list, podcast archive and creativity diary, head to thecreativecondition.com.
There's the stories we tell other people, and there's the stories we tell ourselves. And yes, my book and my work is very outwardly facing. The stories you tell people, pitching, explaining what you do. But honestly, at the end of the day, and really the beginning of the day, the story that you tell yourself is really the most important thing.
Today I'm joined by Story Strategist and author of How to Pitch Almost Anything, 3 Steps to Explain What You Do Fast, Kendra Valentine. Kendra joins me to talk about the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell other people, why it's important to step into the story that can enable us to become the author of the life we want to live. And we need that in this age of automation to thrive as human beings, leading with creativity. This is the Creative Condition. How are you doing, guys? Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast. My name is Ben Talon. I'm the founder of the Creative Condition, a story coach, a creative coach, an illustrator and writer. And I'm here to help you thrive as a human, creating in the age of automation. How are you doing? Welcome back to the show if you're a regular listener. Hello if you're new. Thank you. How did you find it? Get in touch. Let me know. Ben@bentalon.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show, feedback on any topics of conversation, your own situation. If you've got a good story to tell, maybe I'll have you on the show. But if nothing else, I'm happy to share your stuff, see what's going on. I love to support creatives. I'm passionate about creativity. It is why I do this, to help people to move forward, because I believe that if we've got a strong arts and creative community in our world, in global societies, that can only be a good thing for ideas and moving forward with something that might actually be progression, not just labelled as progression, but stiffing the planet in the process. How's your week been? I hope you're well. I hope you're managing with the heaviness of the world, as it always is, the extreme temperatures, the craziness, the interferences in the FIFA World Cup. It's never easy out there, is it? It's never simple. There's always something to assault our little palace of peace there in the back of our mind. And, you know, the work I've had to do myself over the last few years to recover from what I believe now is disordered anxiety has been going well, but it's always under siege. There's always a gamut of information flying at us, trying to just disturb that ability to just be in the moment and be present and just create with flow and joy. I did a wonderful coaching session last week with a new client, which was an absolute joy to get some breakthroughs to help them line up their ducks in a row and understand their own story and their own motivations and maybe things that are roadblocks or derailing their their sense of self and their peace. So, if that sounds of interest to you, I do a number of coaching opportunities. The Pit Stop flagship session, the one-to-one deep dive, is about 3 to 4 hours where we get into everything. No stone is left unturned. And we identify those, those blocks, those frustrations, the ambitions, where you might be coming unstuck. And we look at environment, we look at personality, we look at play, we look at mischief, we look at humor, we look at hormones. There's nothing that we don't cover if it helps you to take control and move forward with clarity in your leadership. So get in touch. And for all the other free resources, of course, thecreativecondition.com. You heard about the lovely sponsors of the show at the top of the show. That's the new intro, Paradiso Institute, the founding sponsor, illustrationx.com, Foilco, and of course the Ukrainian Institute, the gang of four that is making this show possible. If that's of any interest to you, I'm always looking for new supporters for the show to do something interesting with. But without further ado, we've got Kendra Valentine coming up today, a wonderful story strategist who I met at Cannes Lions Festival a couple of years ago. I said hello because I adored Kendra's earrings, which were just an incredible, beautiful pair of earrings, and I had to comment. I love to comment. I learned that from my friend Kyla Paolucci, who's an American designer and illustrator and creative and lecturer and all kinds of many things. And Kyla told me how she goes out of her way to verbalise if she likes what someone's wearing or the way they look, because you just never know how it can help someone in their day. So I've carried that ever since because I think it's important. And so that's why I did that when I met Kendra, and we ended up having a long, deep discussion at the Collins House, Cannes Lions, and it was incredible, and we meant to do this podcast ever since, but I knew Kendra was working on this beautiful book, How to Pitch Almost Anything, 3 steps to explain what you do fast. So I never got round to it, and then when the book came out, we picked up the conversation, and here we are today. So I'll give you a little snapshot of the book. It's been immensely helpful to me. Every day, talented entrepreneurs and professionals like you struggle to explain what they do. You know the feeling. Someone asks, so what do you do? And your mind goes completely blank and you can't explain it succinctly. How to Pitch Almost Anything provides a comprehensive yet simple framework so you can communicate your value or what you offer with confidence and clarity in just 1 to 2 sentences. You can use this in a variety of ways to pitch your business, explain your services, create presentations, write website copy or creative briefs, and any time you need to explain what you do. It really is brilliant. I've been working through it because there's a lot of practical exercises. It's been really, really helpful. I've overhauled my own bio on bentalon.com. I've done it on The Creative Condition with my story coaching, which you can see at thecreativecondition.com/story. But that's enough of the surface stuff. Kendra's going to tell it better than I ever could. So let's get into it. Enjoy this conversation. I'm interested in your interest in story and kind of how that relates to where you're from and what you've experienced in your life.
Thank you for guiding the background, because it can get willy-nilly. So my background in relation to story, I would say, it really started when I was younger and I wanted to be a writer. But that came back around full circle when I decided to study film. So my undergraduate degree is in film and philosophy. I was originally going to go to the Tisch School at NYU, but Boston College gave me money, which is a really good deal in the US when tuitions were like 45, 47K a year. I think now they're more than double. So I went to Boston College. I got a degree in film and philosophy, modern sociology. And then after that, I worked freelance on feature films in the Boston area. We had a tax credit, so a lot of Hollywood films were filming in the area. In that time as well, we had the economic downturn. So I was always kind of entrepreneurial and a bit of a hustler. So I would do things like what I know now as copywriting or other sorts of tasks at that time. And as you can imagine, all of these things kind of revolve around story, right? After some time, I eventually went to Stockholm to study, media industry studies, so a bit of the business side, but in the cinema department, and then went and got into an entrepreneurship school, which was really interdisciplinary. We had people from the art school, from the business school, from the technical school, and I was part of like this one white label program with 5 people that were chosen out of hundreds to kind of go through the curriculum. So that ended up also being storytelling, a lot of it, because a lot of it was values driven in terms of thinking like of ideas and like how do you explain them and pitching and those sorts of things. So then I kind of ended up after that working with a lot of startups and like what you would call more communication type things, positioning, communications, and then also doing promotional films and stuff. I always kind of kept that production thing running in the background. Um, and yeah, after many years of working on different kinds of projects, I started developing a system for honestly to do my own work. I hate being redundant. And I realized quickly that I'm not the kind of person that likes to do my creative work for the work itself. Like I always have side projects that I can do. I make little children's books, I draw them. But when it comes to client, I realized that it was really important for me to realize like, am I doing a good job? And so that's not just about me thinking of like a cool idea to execute. That's like, okay, so what's your business actually? Like, what are your goals? Like, because I can make a promotional film doing saying this and it'll look cool, but like, is this right for you? And over time, I realized that's called discovery with clients and these kinds of things that agency side people know well and inflate quite well. And yeah, I just sort of started working with a lot of companies that were kind of in the phase where they weren't in the position to hire an agency, but they obviously needed like help with story and positioning and these kinds of things. Whether it was you have to position the company before you do any kind of creative, no matter what it is. And yeah, over time, I started developing a methodology that I use for my own work. But in the process, I just the way I consult, I was teaching my clients it. And I realized that that itself was really, really valuable to people, just as strategic thinking. And then after that, they can maneuver as the business grows. So yeah, that's what I started doing. And I named it Strategic Story Design. It has three parts, each build upon the next part. And yeah, after that, I started doing more workshops with this and wrote the book that I just wrote. It's kind of a Trojan horse for the process because it's not very sexy having a book called
Mhm.
Strategic Story Design, unless you're a story nerd like me. Um, you know, I really wanted to write something that was useful for all the people that I can't necessarily help anymore because I really love helping like an individual person or professional or small businesses. But as you know, time goes on, and I'm sure you know, like the amount of time you can spend with those people become limited. Like I volunteer in accelerators and things, but I really wanted to write a book using this methodology, but in a specific use case. And in that is explaining what you do quite simply in one or two sentences, whether it's your job or it's your company or it's the institution you work for. And yeah, I call that a pocket pitch. Um, it's a little spin on what you might call a value proposition statement. Could be a value statement, but the issue with those statements is there's no length or form that people tell you. So
Mhm.
I kind of give a bit more framework for people to start with.
Well, I mean, I need to add it to the creative condition reading list, but it's a tremendous book. It's been very effective for me, for my coaching clients. I keep recommending it to them and
Oh, I love
friends.
that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all need it, and we'll get into it in a minute. But I mean, I'm in my early 40s, and I consider myself a decent writer, but when it comes to this kind of writing, this distillation process, I've needed help, and your book has been incredibly helpful in that regard. But before we get more into that, I'm interested in, you said you were a hustler. Tell me more about that because I'm interested
The
in that.
hustler.
My interpretation of that comes in many ways, but I have considered myself that too. I've jumped into this career feet first. My only training was as an illustrator. The rest of it has had to come through feeling, through trusting my own curiosity, the opportunities that appear before me. Does that does that land with you? And what was it about you that
Yeah,
made
I
you a
think
hustler?
mine was more of like, I didn't know. I was pretty clear on a lot of my skill set in my skill set obviously grew, but like my interests or like what I was naturally good at with observing things or synthesizing ideas. And I think more of it came from just not having a place. Honestly, I didn't know what freelancer was. Honestly, I thought Entrepreneur was the name of this magazine I used to like reading, this Entrepreneur magazine. I just thought they liked a French name, but I was like, this stuff in here is cool. I didn't know it was like a thing. I really
Yeah.
didn't. And I think that's where it came from. The hustle was just like, whoa, I can do this, I can do that. Because honestly, I didn't know how to find a job
Hmm.
or what to look for. I think half the time I could have even taken more classes in the comms school when I was in college, but I didn't quite know that meant. I was more maybe a little pretentious and nah, I study film. I'm not into the
Hmm.
TV, thing, but that's where the internships were. But also with the internships, at least in that time, they were unpaid.
Hmm.
So I didn't come from a family of privilege. I needed to work. I had to work 5 days a week most of my college career. Couldn't take a summer off to work at, Viacom like I wanted to for MTV. So you start piecing together things, and I think that's one advantage of the time now. You can have more resources. You can video call people somewhere else if the things are not popping off where you live. You can research what this job does and doesn't, but we didn't quite have those tools at the time. So that's kind of where the hustle came from, is just being like, okay, what of value can I do that people need, and I can get money to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that hopefully that you enjoy too, that's been a great drive.
Yeah, and I think that's also a blessing in disguise. I mean, and I'm still lucky to this day. It's like most of the time, even if I'm a bit stressed about the things I have to do, like I've worked long and hard, and generally these are all things that I chose.
Yeah.
You've had to sacrifice a lot for them, a lot of comfortability, all these things, but I chose, and I'm really lucky in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love,
Yeah.
we share the belief that everybody has a story worth telling. This is what's led me into recently writing design biographies and helping people tell their story in different ways, which is a whole new
Mhm.
exciting direction in my career that I would never anticipated.
Mm.
Yet I look back and I often tell this story, but I once heard a drunk person in my hometown describe my hometown as one giant Star Wars bar, and it's just packed with eccentrics and colourful characters. And that was the root of my love of and belief that everybody has a story. That I saw magic in those stories, and I would create characters
Mhm.
and wanted to, I saw that I felt that their stories should be on big screens and that they needed that
Yeah.
process. All that said, what stops people from A, being consciously aware of their story, or maybe carrying the wrong story, and B, using it? Because everybody's got one, but so few people know what to do with it.
That's a good question. Well, one thing I think that comes to mind is like I think it's a bit twofold in terms of storytelling. There's the stories we tell other people, and there's the stories we tell ourselves. And yes, I mean, my book and my work is very outwardly facing, the stories you tell people, pitching, explaining what you do. But honestly, at the end of the day, and really the beginning of the day, the story that you tell yourself is really the most important thing, because that story is going to set the scene for everything else. It's going to allow you to communicate to people you need to be communicating and honestly have the clarity or delusion. That also works sometimes. Give yourself a little healthy dose of delusion in your storytelling and get you through. But really, a story you tell yourself. And I think sometimes what stops people is oftentimes is thinking of themselves or their story in relation to other people and forgetting that that's also you are also interpreting the story you get from other people, and they're interpreting the story that you tell. So getting lost in the sauce, it's very limited, right? But a lot of people just get stuck on that. I think that's the thing. And also in terms of storytelling, um, really, it's about thinking it's valuable. A lot of things you're so used to, skill set, you'll know. Oftentimes the things that come natural. I mean, when I start working, I had trouble writing good invoices for a lot of my services because I'm like, because it felt it's something I like to do. But from someone else's perspective, that was something they absolutely hate doing. They do not know how I ever did it, and they're happy to pay me. And I think that's sometimes in the way we see ourselves, like the value of our stories, that we don't realize that they're valuable. And I think that's also a big thing that I try to actually talk about the book. I have like a little sidebar, even though it's a business book. We have like a moment where I'm like, okay, here's like real talk, or a side note where I get it. Like there's frameworks, there's this and that. But at the end of the day, it's about confidence. And These exercises are not just going to help you or this process, this methodology. It actually will help you personally get clarity. And with that, you can have confidence. Like that's a big part. Clarity on your value. So you don't
Mhm.
feel like you're selling someone, but like you're being of service instead, right? That's also a story you can tell yourself.
Well, it is absolutely. There's incredible value in just externalizing the mess that's in our head sometimes, and I think that for someone like me who loves to elaborate and loves to write and weave deeper stories, I have found it incredibly hard at the start of some coaching training that I've been doing recently for agency level. When I was forced, it's like, no, 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 shorter, no, shorter, and I'm going,
Yeah.
but I've got so much to say, and it's like I've
Mhm.
been such an artist
Yeah.
about it. But in the end,
Mhm.
I sat there and looked at the line that I ended up with and went, that feels amazing. To have it down to that and to be able to take that into
Yeah.
networking events, casual conversations, and whatever else
Yeah.
is an incredible feeling, which brings us on to the definition of pitching, because I think it conjures this very grey, frustrating idea of the process that we all know, meeting room, slideshow, will I, won't I? It's
Mhm.
so much bigger than that, isn't it?
Mhm.
So would you be kind enough to tell us
Mhm.
a little more about how you determine pitching?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up actually, because I usually, when I've been doing my speaking, my talks now, I usually start off with that. Especially if it's part of a conference. And I basically tell people, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint some of you in this room because I'm not going to give like sales tips or tactics or no like dark psychology sort of pitching presentation training because that's not what I'm about. I'm about storytelling. And what for me, pitching is anytime we communicate value. So it's headlines in the newspaper, it's the copy on my dog food, it's, me starting this talk right now, explaining my situation. Like anytime you communicate value is how I define pitching in general. Um, yeah. And I think that really widens it up. And whether we're calling it pitching or business storytelling or communications, like it all comes down to we're human beings. The way we process this world around us best is through story and storytelling. We're just primitive, primal, however you want to call it. And within that, we're also scanning our environment constantly to see like what's in it for me, like where do I stand? And so if you approach things that way with leading how you help or like value, then you can get buy-in for people to actually listen to the story itself.
It's what separates us from the animal kingdom, isn't it? And it's what enables us to. I think the number is around. Was it 150? They say that the people you can have truly close relationships with. Beyond that, you need a mantra or you need a story. You have to. You look at.
Mm,
I worked recently with TBWA. I think they're over 11,000 employees. So how do you make cohesive sense of that and form unity? Well, their thing is whether it's disruption company. So everything kind of drops down from that. That's their story. I find that really powerful. And I find
mhm,
it interesting
mhm,
that then people have something to get behind, even though you might never, well, you will never meet all those people. So, yeah, you
right.
kind of need to communicate that, don't you? And that's where the power of whether it's a great ad campaign, a mission statement for an agency might come through, and the ones that are real have a real point of view, don't they? They stand for something and
Yeah,
it tends to come
for
from a,
sure.
a very human story.
Yeah, and I think more, I mean, I wouldn't say always, but more often than not, at least at some point in the process, those are the things that are behind it. People don't just start businesses just because, or projects or things. Usually there's something behind it or some kind of nuance in their perspective or their approach to the work. And yeah, identifying that and then making sure your choices are aligned with it is always really good. I know I've said in terms of like I have in the strategy part of the toolkit, we have like what I call a brand one pager, right? And it's basically a one-page document where you just get like who you're serving, who the audience is, your like competitive advantage keywords, which I love, like things that are relevant for your brand or your business that everyone should understand. And a lot of times that's really useful, especially for teams, to make sure everyone's on the literal same page. And when the words are used, sometimes it's words you shouldn't use because they're like dead or they mean something else in another context that legal doesn't want. No. Um, but to do that and then really just hone in on like, okay, this is the strategy behind it. This is what we're going, at least in the next 6 months. We're concentrating like our business is about disruption. And so having that when you're in the mix or you're in the weeds in making decisions on like, okay, should we go left or should we go right? Or should I have this client? Those things help you not just know the way to go forward, but also who to say no to. I think that was the most the, one of the best exercises I've done for myself as an independent professional is to be like, who do I say no to like get me
Mhm.
to that next level? Yeah.
Yeah, you need a compass for that, which again, story.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I'm also really interested in how it manifests in more subtle ways, the way that people communicate, the language they choose to use. That's all story, isn't it? And again, another story that I tell probably too often, but famous designer Vaughan Oliver. To cut this one short, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who at the time was the creative director at WWE, the wrestling in the States, and
Oh, I
he
like
was a
wrestling.
huge,
Oh,
he
some of
was,
the best storytelling. I'm
sorry,
sorry. Some of the
yeah,
best storytelling, like deny it. You cannot deny it. It's pure theory, but it's beyond like the story, the layers of story, how they would. It's so amazing.
yeah,
From
it's
story's
inc-
perspective, not fault. Like they, it's amazing. Go
It
on.
is. It's incredible. But so I'd emailed Vaughan the next day because this friend who worked at WWE is a huge Vaughan Oliver fan. So, we'd had this conversation. He was gushing over his work and everything else. So I sort of just responded the next morning and thought, you know what, I'm going to email Vaughan and see if he fancies doing the podcast. So I emailed Vaughan. Said, I got this friend at WWE, loves your work, would love to have you on the podcast. What do you think? And I got the best email I've ever had that came back. And it just said, Hi, Ben, I'll talk to any fucker. I'll wrestle any fucker. Vaughan. and and if that is
We
if
have two
that's not,
directives.
yeah, if that's not
That's all
communicating
that.
with purity and with story, that was everything I wanted
Man,
from
you
Vaughan
get so
Oliver.
much out of those two. You get so much out of that. Those like those few words, you get so much. Oh, that's awesome. That's an awesome example.
Yeah. So without going quite down the extremity of that, I now think about that when I send emails. In my younger years, I would have been too formal. I would have, I used to go in my portfolio in London wearing a smart trousers and a shirt. And it's like these days, I'm like, no, 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 no. This has to be my entire business is a reflection of who I am because I'm an artist, I'm a writer, and I do
Mm,
these things
mhm,
that are
mhm,
inherently personal. Now, I know
mhm,
for bigger companies and the like, it's not quite so personal, but it still has to be consistent. And that pitch happens still in so many ways, doesn't it?
mhm. It really does. And I mean, even the pocket pitch, I mean, it's very straightforward and simple. It's one, two words. How you translate that into the creative work, like you usually use those two sentences to make the creative work. That's how I use it. But you can use it for your actual pitch for a company. And even if that's the top, and then you have very corporate branding throughout, and you just need a little motto or whatever you're going to use for your brand, like that can go a long way. Like,
Hmm. In
I mean,
terms,
even in your email, I noticed in your emails, they're amazing. Like you have all of the, you can see my portfolio, you can see me this, that, but you do it in a way to like reflect your own, not personal brand and like your style. I can see a bit of that coming through in the images and like, right, okay. But I can also visit you elsewhere and I know like, okay, you are an illustration professional. Like you, it's not like all about art and like all of my work is this one style. Like, no, definitely not. But you can see it come through. Like, yeah.
yeah, there's a real voice there, and even now, I think my bio on my official website, now having learned all this stuff and the work in your book is I realize, oh my God, I'm still just communicating the tools they use, the clients I've had. The value is not in there. It's like that needs a massive overhaul now. Why do you think people tend to default to the kind of the how and the what as opposed to the why?
Good question. I think we're just programmed to like process our thoughts like that. And also the how and the tools are like the things that we use to get there to the place. And so that's what we focus on because we know those are the things that get the result. That's what we're using, right? Um, so then we're predisposed to find value in those things. And it's not like it's not valuable. Sometimes it is. Like if you are, the one of the few experts that are like able to do something with AI now, maybe you want to put that up front at this moment, that this tool is really important according to who you're talking to. But generally, it's the value that people are after. And, I mean, just like, you know, the pocket pitch reflects story structure, plain and simple. And if you think of a story, like, I don't like, Lord of the Rings, like you can say, Gandalf gives Frodo a fellowship, the ring or whatever to save Middle Earth. Like that's the main thing is that he's saving Middle Earth. Like he could have given him a shovel. As long it doesn't matter as long as you're saving Middle Earth. But oftentimes it's like a little kid. They're like, all right, and you know what? There's this ring, and then you're all about the ring because that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing that actually gets the job done. But like, okay, so why is the ring important? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
great
I don't know. I guess
example.
we have a default of doing that. I just said we have a default to do that because that's what we get hooked on.
Yeah.
Also, oftentimes, even if you just mention like your about page or whatever, and we're writing a text, for some reason, I feel like it's usually like that third little nugget that we get to. And it's like this thing that's like the most important thing. And I was just like, take that, put it up top. The rest of it can stay the same. Just take that, put it up top, and then they'll actually read the rest. Great.
Mhm. About the value of externalizing our story. I know you work, on this as a strategist with this, which I find fascinating.
Mhm.
So in terms, so the kind of realizations that happen when we get the chance to have a conversation around our story with somebody who understands story. So you, in this
Ah,
case, how quickly do people who are maybe living in this muddled version that is costing them opportunities and taking them off their path, how quickly do you start to see transformations in people? And I guess I'm
very
asking about
quickly.
the value of having that people having those conversations.
Oh man, very quickly. I think one of the last talks I did was at an expo, and we had lots of professionals from the industry, meetings industry, meeting planners, and so forth. It was IMAX, and I think I cut down my talk, and some someone afterwards came and talked to me. She's like, "This is really amazing. I just got a new role, but the job on top of my other job, and then in that role, I have two different roles, and I have been struggling to try and explain all of these things. And literally within 20 minutes of your talk, I figured out how to do it." And I think that's kind of the power of it. And it's like, I'm not making it up. Like it's aligned with story. And I think inherently we know like how to process story and like what's the value of what we do. But like how do we articulate it? Or like how do we even begin? I think that's what's hard because we have everything in our head. And I think that's really the power of like having these frameworks, having it's not like end all be all, but it's a wonderful way to start and also not just start, what to do when you finish to kind of edit and refine what you're doing. But yeah, I've had situations. This is actually how I first knew that this book would be super useful to people. I think I was out in Berlin and I was at a party or out we were outdoors. And I asked someone that I knew before, like, hey, what's your new job? She worked doing something tech and finance. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm doing a job. I was, oh, what is it? She's like, oh no, it's just really complicated. It's really boring. And I was like, okay, well, who do you help though in your company? Oh yeah, well, we help these people to do this for like invoices. I'm like, okay. She's like, oh, I guess it's not that complicated. I was like, it's useful. Who do you help? Yeah,
Yeah. We sometimes
very
just
quick.
need to be, maybe the wrong word, but sometimes we just need to be cornered, don't we? And kind of forced to distill it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
once you do, it's quite liberating.
yeah. I mean, I came across this because I needed it. I'm always wary of people who write books from the perspective of something that they're like incredibly good at. And so they're trying to teach other people how to be
Hmm.
naturally good at something. Of course, I'm good with story and I understand story, but it's more because it intrigues me. Pitching? Oh no, I'm not like a salesperson. I'm not like that person. I'm really not. I'm really not. But I understand value and I understand efficiency and I just want things to be done well. And I think a lot of it comes from living in different countries. Most of the people I'm around are not native speakers any day. For the last 15 years, most people around me are not native English speakers. We also have other languages going on. Like, it really humbles you. It makes you, it kind of takes the vocabulary down a few notches. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, I've been reading Haruki Murakami's first novels recently, and there's an introduction that he's written recently, and he talks about exactly that, how he could never find his voice in his native tongue in Japanese. But when he started to write with his very sparse power of English, it unlocked him. Not only did it teach him that he didn't need the vocab to tell compelling stories, but also when he flipped that back to Japanese, it had given him this unique form, this unique beat to his writing in Japanese.
I'm gonna take this because this is what I've been talking about lately. It's
Yeah.
actually I do in my experience, people who are non-native speakers do best with this in pitching because I think because of the constraints built in. No, I said that in the audience that was it was a bit controversial to some, but that's what I believe. Like, and I've seen it.
Scare,
I've
scarcity is
seen it.
powerful in many art forms.
Yeah,
With my coaching clients, I dare them to remove their most essential piece of kit and say, okay, how are you going to solve that creative problem without it? And it might not be spellbinding results, but what it does is it forces you to really go for the nuts and bolts of something.
yeah. Creativity thrives in constraint. But yeah, I that's awesome. I'm gonna need to get that quote
Yeah, no, it's
in
great.
my.
I'll message you the book title. It's in the introduction. There, it's a really good story too. Yeah. Um, Maybe this is recency bias, maybe it's too profound, but do you think there's ever been a more important time to tell your personal story, whether that's from a company point of view or an individual? Just because everybody's got the tools now, everybody's got these amazingly powerful pieces of technology. So I think that puts a massive emphasis on telling a human story to stand out.
Yeah, and I think also it's a emphasizing on like what makes the story human, which is a whole can get a little existential, but I definitely think for sure the strategy part of it's really important because we have these tools. You need to do the thinking behind it in order to use the tools well. Um, when we first started having prompting and all of these with AI, a lot of it came natural to me because of the process I had already been doing in order to make stories. So it was easy for me to interface. And I think that's something that's quite useful. It's just understanding, okay, this is how stories, the structure of stories. Okay, and you have a tool that can run you through a lot of the like execution part, the drudgery of it, so that you can get to the more nuanced part of it. And then with that, there's going to be so much more. There's so much more of everything out there. So what makes you you? We still are uniquely human, knock on wood. We still are as human beings, as far as I know, quite unique and nuanced in all the ways of the magical natural universe. So I think as much of that we can get into our work, the better. It's going to be even more important. You know, people are having full-blown relationships with AI now. So um, I think the more human you can do, be in your relationships, your work, not just better. I think it's gonna be immensely necessary. I mean, I've been keeping it. I'm doing so much work, and before I used to try because okay, I write, but grammar isn't the best. Like punctuation, like I mess up tons. I need a copy editor. Well, not anymore because of AI. Now maybe it's favorable to leave in a mistake or two because it gives it like homemade touch, like we did with baked goods when it's a little, or pottery that we like the little extra dents in. I think we're going to get a little more of that when it comes to like crafting stories or writing and yeah.
Mhm. Brilliant. Well, I'd love to just touch upon your help. Is it framework? Is that the right word?
Yeah, that's I call that one a checklist. I love how these things because it was writing the book forced me to be like, okay, what is a methodology and what is a framework? So
Yeah, yeah.
we went through it. Yeah, I'm like, what is this? This is ridiculous, but I have to call it that. So the strategic story design is a methodology, is the method to do these things. The pocket pitch is a little framework. You fill in a little template. I'm a blank that helps blank, to blank, maybe buy optionally if you want. If you work in like a nonprofit or values for it, you might want to write like we believe, da, da, da. And then the help checklist, that's part of the design part. No matter what channel you're using, oftentimes when you're done, you won't want to review your work. And so with that, it's basically my way of like going back through and editing. So we have H was lead with how you help, the biggest thing. It's literally what the pocket pitch is, but we try to make that like upfront as soon as possible. How do you help? E is for empathy. So yeah, empathy for your audience. Put yourself in their shoes. What would they want to hear? So these are not, L, less words. It's not grammatically correct, which the publisher told me, but I need an L. I'm like, so it's basically another way to say clear and concise, the less words possible, better. And then P is prove it. Put some proof points in there for credibility because people obviously like to buy into something that other people have approved in some way. So I try to like go through when I'm doing work, weave in as much as that as possible. Maybe for proof, we might have a statistic, or you might want to be like, well, I guess we are award-winning agency. Well, that's the credibility. Less words, you chop off what you don't need, and yeah, that's what I use, even if it's, editing film, a promotional film. Same thing with a script. I approach it the same way with editing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool. And yeah, all of this has been gold for me.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it because it's not anything like these, especially these four, like you'll get these in some form or another, in another like comms book or design or something, some configuration of these. But I just put together the ones that make the most sense and you can remember in relation to the other two parts. Straightforward.
Yeah, no, it is. It really is straightforward in the most complimentary way. It's effective. It's fun. It's fun to do. It's, exercise driven, and it's great. And the way you write also is colourful. It's the whole thing shines. I'm really impressed. And
Thank
yeah,
you so much, Ben.
no, of course, and
Yes.
congrats on getting it done because
I had to,
getting a book done is an achievement. I love it.
thank you. I had to restrain myself from too many puns in there, but I got
Brilliant. Well, it's
there were
widely
more.
available.
There were more.
The book's widely available. Where can people connect with your work and check out what you're up to and say hello?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best place to find me. It's Kendra Valentine, LinkedIn, based in Berlin, if that helps. There's not too many Kendra Valentines, but who knows? Otherwise, on social, my handle is generally at Miss Kendra V, MISSKENDRA V. And yeah, just say hello. Open to emails at hello@kendravalentine.com. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to get them because, when people ask me things about where I work, it helps me to have another perspective or to do better work. Yeah, for
Brilliant.
sure.
Well, it's great stuff you're doing. Keep it up, and it's been lovely to chat.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me, Ben.
Thanks to Kendra Valentine for taking the time out of a hectic schedule to chat for this episode of the Creative Condition podcast, which I hope you loved enough to consider going and rating, reviewing, or subscribing on the platform you choose to listen to this thing. And if you could tell a friend, that would be awesome. If you took anything from today's episode, tell a friend. So you should check out the Creative Condition podcast. I think it might help. Word of mouth is huge for podcasts, and I'm looking to grow the show as I look to help more and more people with their creativity. So thank you guys. It means a lot to have you around today. I hope you'll be back next week for more content around creativity. Big thank you to the sponsors of the show, the founding sponsor, illustrationx.com, been here since day one, supporting a global range of illustrators, animators and artists as they bring you that good illustration stuff. Illustrationx.com for all the portfolios, the news and everything else the agency is up to. Paradiso Institute, supporting leadership in creativity worldwide through coaching, through therapy, through programs, and all sorts of other good stuff you can check out at paradisoinstitute.org. Foilco, wonderful, sexy stamping foils, the widest range in the world, I believe. Zero waste to foil programs, all good stuff going on. Check them out at foilco.com. Family run business based up in the Northwest, doing awesome workshops at all kinds of creative festivals where you can connect with them too. And finally, the Ukrainian Institute. If you want to support the brave creative community in Ukraine during this awful time of war, you can do so by sharing their work, by commissioning their artists. Just let them know let them know you're listening. It's really important. ui.org.ua. Thank you, guys. You can coach with me one-to-one if that's of interest. Get in touch. Check it out on the website, thecreativecondition.com/coach, or thecreativecondition.com/story for the story-specific coaching. Book writing, writing your talk. I can help you with all of it. I love it, bringing that narrative juice to what you're doing anyway. Thanks for listening as ever, guys. Have an awesome week and stay creative.